It seems okay. Prince Leaf is gonna start to run, and other blues.
Okay. Yeah, you're just gonna start. There's a little cutscene that starts at the very beginning of the game. He's gonna mash through it, and as soon as that cutscene ends and Fred gets control, that's when you're gonna start the timer.
All right, cool.
All right, so this is the Flintstones 2 Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, which is well known as one of the most expensive NES cartridges there are, mostly due to the same reasons Hagane is so expensive, because it was only released ever as a rental through Blockbuster, I believe. So there was no commercial release of it, you couldn't buy it in stores, so it's one of the reasons why it's so expensive. So his first stage, alright, so this is... He can go as fast as he can, but ultimately this stage is governed by a global timer, because at the very end of the stage, he's going to have to make his way through these dragons that are spitting fire, and their timer is based on the speed you went in. Their timer starts at the beginning of the stage, so you're kind of locked into that timer. All right, so as soon as he beats that stage, we find out that at the very end his children are trapped on the other side of a volcano. Unfortunately, he doesn't understand 3D space, so he doesn't just go around the volcano. He goes all the way around the entire island, much as if there were a road blockade in your town and you decide to drive all the way around the world to get around it. So this boss right here is supposed to be a massive pain in the ass, but if you hit him with your club right at the very beginning of the fight, he just sort of disappears. That's really the only way to describe it. Coming up is one of the first and biggest route changes that Prince Leaf made when he beat my world record, and this is a much quicker kill on this boss here. And on top of just being a quicker kill, he also grabs the gem that completes the stage much faster. So here he'll get the last hit, and then he grabs the gem actually above the screen instead of waiting for it to fall down, which is actually a fairly significant time save based on how fast the gem falls. So a little bit about the history of this game. Rafioska had the world record for quite some time, and I beat his time, but only really because a new route was discovered, or basically a small route improvement, which, despite the fact that my gameplay wasn't particularly better, did end up amounting to enough time saved to beat Rafioska's time. And so I was pretty satisfied with the time I had. I didn't want to push it down much further, and I ran it at the last Best of NES Marathon. And then Prince Leaf came along shortly after and decided to make it his life's work to make me cry. And took my record from me. My only world record. But he has been putting up amazing runs ever since, so at least over the past month, I get a message from him probably... There was a period of time over about a week where I got a message from him once per day, basically saying, okay, here's the new world record. So he's been doing great things with this game.
I once had a person in my life whose sole mission was to make me cry, but we got a divorce 5 years ago, so things have been much better.
I can understand that. The fight that just happened here where he killed that caveman, what you're actually supposed to do is there are boulders that fall from the ceiling and you're supposed to hit the boulders to fly into that caveman. But there's a small pixel position, a small pixel window, maybe 2 or 3 pixels wide, that you can stand in that's just barely outside of his club's hitbox, but just far enough inside the caveman's hitbox that you can hit him yourself. You're not supposed to be able to hit him. So... that's a nice little trick. Now we go surfing. Again, a reminder that this game would have been considerably shorter if Fred Flintstone had understood three dimensions and had just, sort of simply walked around the small pool of lava.
But where's the fun in that?
Right. There's no game there. This is a relatively straightforward stage. As far as the speedrun's concerned, there's little time saves here and there, but overall this is probably one of the more straightforward levels in the game. Not a lot of variation, which is kind of nice. It's a nice break in between stages that really can kill runs as far as, losing a few seconds here and there, and then when the game actually gets particularly frustrating. This is yet another one of those games that the hardest stages and the biggest run killers all happen within the last 30 seconds of the run, so be ahead by as much as you want, the game doesn't care. This is an interesting boss fight because a lot of the sub-weapons in this game, you don't always get a great opportunity to make use of them. But depending on how you want to do this boss fight, I don't think Prince Leaf uses it here. But this is one of the first boss fights where you can really start to incorporate sub-weapons into your strategies. So, like he picked up the bowling ball. The bowling ball is fairly effective against that boss, and at least in old runs of this game, I think Rafioska might have used it, and I definitely used the bowling ball to beat that boss. And it's nice because the sub-weapons are sort of less detailed than they are in the first Flintstones game. You can only carry one at a time, and overall they're just not as applicable. So it's really nice when you can find an excuse to use them. This game has perhaps the best water physics of all time. You just sort of run through the water. I challenge you to find a game with cooler water physics.
Wait for the Ninja Crusaders race. You just walk
Yeah, I
on
forgot
water.
about that one. That one's literally bunny hopping through water. Asked and answered.
That's literally all I'm here for.
This stage is a giant's house, so you're actually in the piping system, like you went down the sink basically, and so now you're working your way through the pipes underneath the house. Just to fill in the backstory. This boss is an interesting challenge as far as the speedrun's concerned. His invincibility frames last for an obscene amount of time, and then on top of that, when he does go back above the screen, some of the patterns he can give you, he just won't allow you to hit him. So doing this little one-cycle kill on the spider is key to getting a good time in this game. You see Prince Leaf going back and forth between characters in this game. Both Fred and Barney have different abilities. Barney can shoot a slingshot, whereas Fred has the ability to grab onto ledges and things like that. So you can't climb with Barney, but you can with Fred. And Barney has a shorter hitbox, so sometimes if you see him trying to make it under a low ceiling or something like that, he'll switch to Barney for that.
Barney's also a much more understanding husband.
Sure. Less yelling, more bowling. So that right there, that right there was actually the big route improvement over Rafioska's run. It was discovered that one of the pits in this stage, surprise, surprise, wasn't actually a pit. It was actually a shortcut to a much later part of the stage, skipping 2.5 rooms. So that was all it took for me to get enough time to match and eventually barely beat Rafioska's time. But Prince Leaf has now pushed this game about a minute and 15 faster than my old world record, so for such a short game, hopefully that communicates exactly how much work Prince Leaf has put into this game. Like, as far as I was concerned with my previous strats, this game, like, my run wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but my strats, I thought, were about as good as it was going to get, and Prince Leaf pretty much replaced every single one of my strats with a better one.
It's amazing that something like that could remain hidden for so long.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you don't check a whole bunch of those pits because most of them just kill you instantly. So that late in the stage, you've just stopped trying, I guess.
And was it one of those that was just discovered by accident, like just a bad move and fell down the pit and went, oh, I'm further along in the level now?
Well, I had been running it. I was trying to learn the game based on Rafioska's old run. And someone actually approached me, a stream viewer of mine, who I guess had played the game a lot as a kid or something, and was like, oh, by the way, you know, you can just like go down this pit and skip like 2.5 rooms. I was like, no, sir, I did not know that. Thank you.
Perfect.
I mean, that's a dream right there, is, you know, someone randomly comes into your chat while you're speedrunning and says, hey, by the way, you can save 1.5 minutes if you just, you know, do this one thing.
I remember that happening with Commando in the first Big 20. Someone goes, by the way, did you know there's an item you could pick up that helicopters you to the end of the level without having to play the boss? What? Okay.
A lot of the climbing that he's doing in this stage is a lot more precise than I think it looks. If done properly, I guess you would never notice how difficult it can be. But a lot of those jumps sort of require you to jump out a really far distance and then at the very last second turn around so you can hook on to a ledge that you're not supposed to be able to get to quite so early. So that climb is so quick because of how precise a lot of the jumping mechanics are. And he got a really good pattern on that dragon fight.
Is that fight RNG, or are there just certain set patterns?
Well, there's a few issues with that fight. The first and biggest issue is the fact that where he dies can determine how long the end of the stage takes, just due to the fact that if he dies on one of the sides, Fred very slowly works his way back to the center in order to end the fight. And then the other issue is that he will randomly choose to shoot fire up through one of the pits and will stand at the top of it, making him unhittable. So all the while I'm talking, Prince Leaf is doing this stage right here where you're being chased by a boulder, and there's a lot of little time saves where you're supposed to just wait for the boulder to catch up to you at the end of it, and it provides a platform for you. But Prince Leaf says, no thanks, I'm not going to wait on that boulder, I'm just going to make a really awkward, difficult, instant death jump if you miss it. And completely skips waiting the extra, like, 5 to 10 seconds for the boulder to catch back up to you. So here you can see, like, the low spikes, he switches between characters in order to change his hitbox so that he can move more effectively. Coming up pretty soon on the next to last room in the stage, which is without a doubt the most nerve-wracking stage in the entire game, where you're being chased by a giant red wheel that it's just impossible to get very far away from. This is a truly terrifying point of the run because there's a skip coming up. Prince Leaf actually optimized the skip that's coming up. I had tried to incorporate some stuff that I saw from a TAS, and Prince Leaf basically figured out how to do it actually the way the TAS does it, rather than my slower, more friendly version. So this is a terrifying point of the run right here, because you need to get enough of a lead on this wheel here, just enough so that you can break down a wall before the wheel comes up behind you. And if it touches you, it's instant death. There is absolutely no wiggle room in this one right here.
That was the wall. Coming up off a rope hang, too. That looked difficult.
Yes, it's incredibly challenging.
It appears the bowling ball is about the same size as Barney.
It's huge. Absolutely huge. So we're coming up on time pretty soon. This is a pretty challenging boss fight here as well. Just sort of, if you don't know that there are some safe places to stand in this fight, it's just constantly dealing damage to you. Like when he puts his head down. And there, time. That was an amazing run. He went so fast that I couldn't even talk about all of the great things he was doing. And for what it's worth, his marathon run here was still almost a minute faster than my old world record, so... I knew that this run was going to be sort of on pace for him just because of the fact that he has been consistently churning out world record after world record. It didn't seem like the marathon was really going to stop him from... Yeah, like he said, that time was 5 seconds behind the world record.
Yep. Really great for in a marathon.
He's an amazingly consistent runner. He's one of those unsung heroes that I try to tell people about. He's amazing, and he doesn't have even 1% of the number of followers he needs because he does some awesome stuff.
Well, we can change that today.
Yeah, everyone should go follow Prince Leaf. He's incredibly talented, and he really works hard, so... I'm sure you'll like some of the other stuff he does. He plays Home Improvement for the SNES as well, so...
That game.
You know, if you're looking for quality, I guess is the point. If you're looking for quality, he's got it.
Fun. Any game is fun to watch be speedrun, that's for sure.
So everyone, if you're here and you follow Best of NES and you need to follow people from this marathon, Prince Leaf is one of the people to be followed. Actually, all of these people are people to be followed, but I just want to make sure Prince Leaf gets followed.
But if you're like, hey, stop telling me to follow everybody, I'm just going to follow like 70% just to be cool, make sure Prince Leaf is one of those 70%. I think that's what we're saying.
There you go. Well articulated.
Yeah. Follow him over me, like if you have to decide.
Yeah. Unfollow me and give your follow to Prince Leaf.
Don't upset the balance.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for featuring Flintstones 2. I mean, I'm really glad that game got the love it deserves because he's been working his ass off.
That's right. We'll keep the Caveman series going with Joe and Mac